basically asked all of you that signed up through the CIM website, if you remember, you filled in a question. The question was, what was your biggest challenge working in an international environment? We got quite some similar answers, we got quite some interesting challenges. So basically we filtered out 5 to 6 challenges that could make an interesting discussion. Just projected them on a PowerPoint. After we've gone through those, it's open for everybody to ask other questions, any other issues you want to discuss. So we'll start with the ones that we got. That's the first one. You have it on paper as well. Somebody filled in, I don't know if this person is actually here because we had a bit more people signing up than actually came. So there was one challenge saying dealing with negative biased attitudes based on preconceptions about my country and culture. How to handle this best. So I think this person was feeling as a person that maybe his or her boss or his colleagues or her colleagues around had some kind of preconceptions that were of a negative influence. So the question is how to change these preconceptions.
Well, I meet it all the time. I'm a foreigner in Cyprus. I accept I'm a foreigner in Cyprus. And I do my level best to fit in. And I try to be a chameleon wherever I can. On the light-hearted side of it, I have discovered that three people use the English. Very much, but you do. So I make a huge amount of the fact that I'm actually Irish. And I go on to point out that the north of our country has been invaded by the English and how much that hurts. And it takes me a very long way that. It gets me instant sympathy because suddenly I'm not one of the nasty English, I'm something else. But they don't quite understand, but that doesn't really matter. I'm something else and that's perfectly fine. The other thing I find is that also, I talked a little bit about preconceptions based around groups of people. And people do have preconceptions. They walk in and they see a foreigner and therefore they assume you're an English foreigner and everything that goes with that. But once they get to know you, they discover you're actually just Mike. I know how I draw my frappe and stuff like that, and you get accepted because you just become Mike. So the challenge is to get out of being a group and get into being the individual.
Thank you. I'm a foreigner in Cyprus too, and I would say yes, stereotyping does exist, and we do stereotype people according to their background, according to their cultures, and it's very difficult to get these stereotypes over. So if you are a foreigner in an in a hostile environment, let's say, and your culture is not perceived positively, you cannot do much about it because it's stereotyping and it has been established actually a long time ago. So my advice, just be yourself, but try to change these negative perceptions to the degree you can. If you are just a foreigner in the environment that is hostile to you, that's it. But it's stereotyping, and we cannot do much about it.
Yeah. Be yourself. Try not to criticise. Remember, most Americans can't even put Europe on a map. It's the other person's problem. Just be grateful that not everybody is the same.
Any other ideas from the participants? Go to the next, so we use some time for the other questions. Well, basically, so I'm not full of words. Basically, what style of communication to use? Because you're facing a different culture, it's hard to choose what style of communication to use at the beginning when you don't know the other culture yet. Are there any tips on how to get an understanding on how to communicate with a different culture?
I would say, first off, don't fall into the stereotype trap. You're meeting a person, an individual. So therefore, just being open, just being genuine, just being you, the real authentic you, goes a very, very long way. One thing I've learned along the way is the importance to clarify what you mean. And from time to time I have the pleasure of working with Marinos, and he always picks me up on, if we're developing a case for something or we're developing a proposition for something, I will say, let's go and create the story that goes with this. And he always picks me up and he says, no, in Cyprus, if you say you're creating a story, it means you're making a lie. And therefore I've learned to change my phraseology to not use, let's go and create a story. The other thing I find is, you just need to clarify. So even with people who apparently speak perfect English, it's worth just looping back and saying, you obviously can't be condescending about this because you're not trying to be condescending, you're trying to be helpful. But looping back to make sure that the message you've sent is the same as the message that's been received matters. And again, in that one, I try to avoid colloquialisms wherever I can, because in my natural language, I tend to use a lot of colloquialisms. But when I'm in a business context, I try and take them out of it completely, because whilst they mean something to me, they might mean something to somebody else. The other example I'll give you on that one is, I have an expression about, I just don't believe in coincidences. So when I find a coincidence, the expression I use is, I had this spooky situation, and I suddenly discovered that Marinos is now, because I work we're up closer together, he's now discovered I use this expression, and he now uses it as well. And so we're probably confusing everybody in CIIM as to what on earth we're talking about. Never mind.
So, answering to this question, to this challenge, I would say that every time when we are going to have negotiations with somebody who comes from a different country, with somebody who has a different culture, it's very good to try to learn as much as possible about his or her culture, so as to show some respect. In this world, we tend to show a little bit more respect towards the cultures that represent more developed countries, and less respect towards the countries that represent, towards the cultures that represent developing countries, less advanced countries. I think it's wrong. So any culture should be respected. So in order to have a perfect communication style in the negotiations, try to learn as much as possible about the culture of your partners, of the parties in negotiations. Respect other people's culture.
Yeah, I agree. You should do the obvious homework. You should know how decisions are made, how things reasonably work in the place you are, how long it takes to get access to the right people, whatever the issues are. You'll never understand all the links. So the fallback position is be professional. Professional communications don't need adjectives, they don't need to be artificially tailored to a situation. So just the rule is really try to be yourself and do the obvious homework. Lots of people don't do the homework. They don't look up the company mission statements, they don't look up the names of the directors, they don't know how long it takes to get to the airport, or how the power supplies work, or what the right sort of food to have is, or when lunch is, or why Caesar closes their shops at lunchtime, or when the banks are open, or what cola is, or why you can't buy something here on a Saturday afternoon in the supermarket.
And on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Well, unless you shop at Alpha Mega, of course.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a question for all three speakers, but I'd like to limit it to Cyprus, because we are in Cyprus, and I think Cyprus is a good example for a lot of cultures being in the same room, and it's basically to do with, we all come from different cultural backgrounds, hence we have people with different conceptions, which will result to different negotiations, like Mike mentioned before. But what I would like to know is, with you working in Cyprus, just from a non-Cypriot viewpoint, do you think that the culture could be an obstacle for development? For example, I'll give you an example. We do have the culture here in Cyprus, and I'm putting myself into this as well, that we say endaksi, endaksi, siga, siga. So this is like the culture. Could this be like an obstacle? And if it is an obstacle, do we change it or do we just accept it?
I would say while in Rome, do as Romans do. So as foreigners that are trying to do business here in Cyprus, we have to accept the cultural norms here, cultural beliefs, values and attitudes, and try to integrate. Otherwise, it's impossible to do businesses here and even to live here if you don't want to integrate. So yes, sometimes it's very disturbing in terms of time, in terms of punctuality, the differences in punctuality, the differences in space, the differences in attitudes. But I would say foreigners would need to try to integrate into this if they want to be successful here, or just to show that they respect this culture and they're trying to integrate. It is to show if they completely disagree with the way the things are in Cyprus. That would be the key to success as well.
I broadly agree with all of that. There's only one small thing I'd put to it, is that I've found a number of situations whereby people want to talk to me because I'm foreign and I have different views. And sometimes the challenge is, because like you, I try to behave like a comedian. If I'm sat in front of somebody and they're behaving like this, I try to behave exactly the same way. But equally, I recognise that there's a reason they're talking to me. And in Cyprus, frankly, it's 801,000 people. Everybody knows everybody. So they're talking to me rather than talking to their uncle's brother's best friend who lives in the same village. Yeah, because that's the way it works here. But they're talking to me. There's a reason they're talking to me, not their uncle's brother's best friend who lives in the same village. And if I can figure out that indeed that is the case, they have made the choice to talk to somebody who is different, then I challenge that. I deliberately challenge it to underline the fact I'm different.
I think interpreting the question as, is Cypriot culture an obstacle to Cypriot development? Is that what you were getting at? Yeah, you're not going to like the answer if you're Cypriot. The answer is yes, it is. Cyprus might have an ancient culture, but emotionally it's rather immature. In a world where communications are faster and nobody owes everybody a living, I'm sorry, but Big Brother's died. Greece isn't here anymore. There's no help from Athens. There's no money coming from the historic culture. The division of the island is just not an issue. It's fixed as a line. You can't change it. You're not going to die for it. Cypriots are not going to go to war for it. There's not enough emotion to launch a military aggression against a country with a 1 million standing army. Get over it. You're going to hate people who hate this. The level of academic achievement must rise to avoid having to buy professionals in. And the youth must be encouraged to return in an ageing population. That might be too much to ask, but that's the challenge that Cyprus really faces. I would think it's an each way bet.
Can I develop that point?
Yeah, have I not been rude to any part of Cyprus society? Did I miss anything?
The other evening, I seem to be having a Rotary week, because I went to a Rotary group meeting in Paphos. I was invited to go as a guest last week. And I listened to a guy presenting on the subject of the crisis and what Cyprus should do about it. And he came up with an idea I hadn't seen before. He came up with the Chinese word for crisis. And apparently the Chinese word for crisis is made up of 2 characters. And in Chinese, a character means a word. And apparently the 2 characters were danger and opportunity. and when you put the two characters together in Chinese, it means crisis. And interestingly, the correct way of drawing it is with the danger one bigger than the opportunity one. And I think that's actually a very nice way of summing up what's going on, because I would say there's a lot of business in Cyprus that has kind of gone along. And it kind of, because everybody's brothers, uncles, friend who lives in the next village has kind of been part of this, it's kind of gone along. And you can look at so many things here and say, but that's crazy. You know, I hate going to the EAC office in Paphos because I know I'm going to have to stand in a line for probably half an hour. And at the end of it, I'm going to be served by somebody who would really rather I was dead than help me.
No,
Right?
that's not fair.
It's true. It's true. So, I think what that says is, there's two ways you can look at the crisis. You could look at it as danger, and you could look at it and say, yes, there is going to be significant unemployment in this island. There is, I'm sorry, it's a fact. You could look at it and say there are going to be hard times. Taxes are going to go up, it's going to cost us money to live here, they're facts. But equally, for the people who are prepared to get up and go out and be counted, I think the opportunities are phenomenal. Because I think the opportunities to be innovative about the way you go about doing business, and in particular be innovative about the way you go around delivering customer service, could be absolutely fundamental to how you develop a business in Cyprus in the next 5 years. So yes, there's danger, but I also think there's opportunity on a scale that all of us in this room could benefit from majorly, if with the right mindset of, let's see it as opportunity, let's not see it as danger. I'll give you an answer.
Yeah.
We just want to And by the way, there are many companies that like crisis. In Ryanair, they say we love recessions, and in McDonald's they say we love recessions because that's the time where we are making more money. So just
may I just make a comment on Graeme's reply?
Sorry, God.
I would like to agree with one point and elaborate and add something extra and disagree with another.
Please.
What I would like to disagree with what you mentioned about Cyprus and the division of the island and getting over it. Greece made a huge mistake historically. It lost Smyrna nearly 100 years ago. And it didn't continue politically to fight about it, and it disappeared. I'm Greek and I've been living in Cyprus for many years. Cypriots have refused to accept, not by war, but politically, for 35 years nearly, to accept this division. And politically they have been fighting it. And in the international community they have managed to establish this as a division. And to get at least the moral benefit that they are correct, that they are managing to put pressure and still not to recognize the other half of the island as a country, to put economic pressure to the other half of the island and still to resist it and to keep this as an idea alive. And now it's 35 years. And if they continue the same politics, it's going to continue. And it's a big benefit. Greece lost Smyrna and okay, they left it. I mean, after 15, 20 years, it was just forgotten. You are completely correct. It would be very foolish to just go for a fight and to start warfare with a country that has 1 million people, army. But politically, you can still fight for an idea, and keeping it alive, I think, is important. What I would agree a lot, and I would like to add on it, is what you mentioned about the youth, the education, the level of innovation, and how damaging it would be for Cyprus to import foreign expertise. I worked briefly in a country in Libya that was doing this, like most Arab countries, and it's completely destructive for an economy to have your own people to pay them $500 per month, $400, and to bring someone, because he finished university abroad, and to pay him $10,000 per month. What I would like to say is that in Cyprus, I believe there definitely has to be an upgrade in the level of education, and the fact that many Cypriots are going abroad to study and bringing expertise to Cyprus will help the economy. But it has to change a bit the mentality about what Daniel asked, and I will give an example about this. My friend here is going to laugh because he knows this. I'm going to bring an example, a nation that I admire a lot, which is Israel, and it's a population of 5 million, 6 million, and they're the first in technology, in medicine, in sciences. They're around with enemies 80 million people. You say that we face Turkey that has 1 million army, and Greece is 10 million population, but if you had the mentality and the strategy and the know-how and the expertise and the behavior of Jews, you will be able to deal with it. And you will be innovative, you'll be economically strong, and you'll be one step ahead. That's it.
Cyprus has an immediate economic problem which is going to stretch for 10 years. That's the reality of the current financial situation. The political and military situation is a 50-year problem. I think the parallel with Israel is very good. The Arab world would like Israel to disappear. It's inconvenient. The Palestinians would like Israel to be wiped off the face of the earth so that all the Jews and all the Israelis just disappeared and they got back, as they would put it, their homeland. The Israelis would like the Palestinians to just disappear, to be wiped off the face of the earth, so they got back the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Two completely incompatible situations. It's good for the extremists in politics to keep themselves in power, but it doesn't change anything. Israel has to win every military conflict. It can't afford to lose one because it's a small place. One loss is wipeout. On this island, there is a partition. There is an insurmountable military enemy if hostilities were to recommence. And Cyprus has already got its revenge. Turkey can never join the EU. It can talk forever, but it will never join the EU. And it's getting more reconciled to that. When I worked in Ankara, they were changing laws. They were changing how the judiciary was formed, how the economic laws were created for tendering and for transparency, their banking laws. They were reforming the way their courts worked to come nearer to the EU standards. But they'll never get in. Germany, Austria, and Greece and Cyprus's own vote will make sure the Turkish admission to the EU never happens. The Cypriots have got their 10-year revenge. On a strategic level, even though this is very unpopular and probably get shot, that's all there is to it. Anything else is just an expectation of hope. In my personal, uninformed, foreign opinion. Please ask me another question. I'm not going to listen.
Shall I continue with the slides? Or
I think you're probably better.
Just one.
I still haven't kicked any little old ladies, but I will.
Yeah, about Turkish, and you said Turkey will never get into EU. Okay, officially no, but unofficially they haven't. Okay.
But they won't get money out of material.
There were many of those in Germany.
The next one is basically we're talking about such a fast-changing world and so many developments going on. How do you personally, as an employee, stay competitive in your environment when you have lots of people around you with good degrees, lots of foreign companies? So do you have any advice on how each of us can stay competitive?
One word: network.
I think it's good. It's easier to stay competitive when you have people around you with diverse backgrounds. It's good. It's something positive. It's easier to stay competitive. If some cultures do not like your business, I guess this is the question for the companies, not for individuals. Some others would like. So you can always find your target market if the environment is diverse. So some niche.
And
there's
how,
no chances to find the niche.
And how do we stay, I mean, if one of us wants to, would like to change companies, would like to have a challenge of working abroad, what's the best way to find the opportunities?
The words I picked up on this were how do I personally stay competitive? And I guess not being under 30, as you might have guessed, through my career, I've found I've had to keep reinventing myself as something else. Always has been a sort of broad sales, marketing, strategy theme through everything I've done. But I've worked in a variety of different industries, I've worked in a variety of different countries, I've worked in a variety of different job titles. And I've learned that if you view something as a job for life, you're dreaming. You're absolutely dreaming. I tend to view life as a series of 3 to 5 year projects. For this period of time, this is what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to go and reinvent myself as something else, and I'll come back with something else, and go and do something different. So I guess I would say the challenge is to have a time scale, keep reinventing yourself, but therefore go learn new stuff. E-business became a huge part of my world 5 years ago. I knew nothing about e-business. Now I can hold a conversation with world leaders on the subject because I've spent a huge amount of time going and learning about e-business because it's fundamental. But I had to go learn. I had to reinvent myself as something else. And that's what I would challenge all of you to do. If you want to be competitive, if you want to get a good jobs abroad, if you want to move on, be the person you can be.
Be digitally advanced.
Be digitally advanced.
Digitally advanced, yeah, it's very important. In marketing, now we have a shift from traditional marketing, traditional advertising to digital advertising. And actually, using the internet, you can have access to everything. And even the major companies are now switching to digital marketing. For example, Heineken recently launched one advertising campaign, and it first launched it on YouTube and on Facebook, which was unthinkable 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And only in 3 months, they launched a traditional commercial on TV. So it's all about digital age.
Okay, I'll go to the next one. Well, I think we discussed